God bless America. Hello, everybody. I am the Talk Radio Protege. This is the Protege program. I can hardly believe that it's Monday. My work schedule has been so thrown off by the recent holiday season that it just doesn't feel like Monday. But nevertheless, it is Monday. There's a long, exciting week of news ahead of us. I hope that you are in for the long haul. And before I go any further, let me just stop and say that you have clicked on the right video. We are going to talk about Oprah Winfrey's Golden Globes speech. But before we do that, I just wanted to address this little elephant that was on the Drudge Report website this afternoon. Apparently, Steve Bannon, or a group that he was on in 2015, before the Republican primaries got started, before even all of the Republican candidates had entered the field, Steve Bannon was looking for information and opposition research that he could use to derail Trump's early campaign. And my first inclination is to think that this is false. That's my first inclination for the vast majority of things that come out of the mainstream media. And I wouldn't be surprised if this story was false. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if this story was true, because Trump did not have a monopoly on the Republican Party in the primary. He didn't have a monopoly on evangelicals. He didn't have a monopoly on conservatives. He didn't even really have a monopoly on the libertarian element of the Republican primary electorate. So, Steve Bannon is just one public figure that was opposed to Trump, that was likely opposed to Trump throughout the entire primary. Ben Shapiro was another one. There are several others that were opposed to Trump during the primary and even in the general election that would be considered conservative-minded. So I just wanted to point this out for this story briefly here in this video. The rest of our time is going to be spent talking about Winfrey's Golden Globes speech. She received the award for the Cecil B DeMille Award for Lifetime Achievement at the Golden Globes. And the way that I understand the Cecil B DeMille Award is that it's named after, obviously, Cecil DeMille, who is a person that apparently built the film industry. And this is secondhand information. I don't have any reference to this at all. It's just something that I've heard. So I wonder what Oprah Winfrey has done that is even in the same ballpark as building an industry. I guess Oprah Winfrey's had that TV show that has run since before President Trump was the most hated man in the Republican Party. He was even on that show, if I recall correctly, being asked if he would run for president by Oprah Winfrey, as if it was something she was looking forward to. But nevertheless, she decided to go really hard in the paint political with this speech. And the first paragraph here has inspired me to add a new segment to my planned progressive leftish dictionary. And that segment is going to be on cliches that the left uses and employs. And the first entry into the leftish catalog of cliches is that leftists have the wokest kids. And Exhibit A is going to be Oprah Winfrey from this Golden Globes speech. Her first statement: in 1964, I was a little girl sitting on the linoleum floor of my mother's house in Milwaukee, watching Anne Bancroft present the Oscar for Best Actor at the 36th Academy Awards. She opened up the envelope and said 5 words that literally made history. The winner is Sidney Poitier. I'm not even going to pretend to know how to pronounce that. Up to the stage came the most elegant man I had ever seen. I remember his tie was white, and of course his skin was black, and I had never seen a black man being celebrated like that. Now, again, the wokest children are had by leftists when they miraculously manage to put male genitalia and female genitalia together in such a way that a child is born. And even young Oprah Winfrey was so shallow and so, dare I say, racist or perhaps even sociopathic that she could not be inspired by a non-black person. She couldn't be inspired by somebody who maybe had pulled themselves up by their bootstraps and made a living for themselves out of poverty or out of being in a down-and-out position, unless they were black. They had to be black, and that was the only way they were going to inspire little Miss Oprah Winfrey. Now, moving right along, there's talk about Oprah Winfrey's background, and I guess how she came to be the woman, the success that she is today. I won't deny that she's a successful media personality. But then she goes on to console the poor, dejected, and put upon mainstream media. I want to thank the Hollywood Foreign Press Association because we all know the press is under siege these days. We all know it's the insatiable... Well, let me stop there because I want to talk about that first sentence. The press is under siege. The reality of the siege that the press is under is that they're, to use the words, under siege from a political opponent that they can't destroy on one hand, and on the other, they're under siege from a competition, aka the alternative media, YouTube, independent journalists, independent news and media organizations like CRTV is one of them. Rush Limbaugh and his whole radio program is another. There are, just anybody that's not based in the cable news game who is still doing news is competing against the mainstream media, and the mainstream media can't compete with this alternative media. They just can't do it. Even a YouTuber who consistently gets only 100,000 views on his videos has a better audience than the vast majority of the mainstream media. She says that the press has dedication to absolute truth. We know it's the insatiable dedication to uncovering the absolute truth that keeps us from turning a blind eye to corruption and to injustice. Now, first of all, the left ought to look at this and think, silly Oprah believes in absolute truth. It's been the position of the left that there is no absolute truth until just recently, it seems to me to be. Secondly, Oprah wishes for those of us lay people that just can't do enough to follow along with the events of the world, that can't keep up with what's going on. She wants us to trust the media that has turned a blind eye to corruption and injustice for a decade. Now we are to trust these individuals. Skipping on down a little bit, she says, what I know for sure is that speaking your truth is the most powerful tool that we all have. And I find it funny that the phrase your truth is in the same paragraph as the phrase absolute truth, because to distinguish between the two would say that in the minds of some people, what they believe is true is not actually true. For instance, I included a link in a previous video to children demonstrating a lack of understanding of consistency in certain elements. For instance, volume of water, length or quantity of coins, mass of objects. Children believe that just because the level of a fluid in one glass is higher than the level of fluid in another, or some children believe anyway, that the level of a fluid is equivalent to the volume of a fluid, the vertical level of a fluid. That doesn't make it true, but I suppose in Oprah Winfrey's mind, this truth and speaking that truth is the most powerful tool that those children have. As ludicrous as that might sound, That appears to me to be the principle that Oprah Winfrey is espousing. Secondly, when we say that there's a difference between absolute truth and your truth, there can be some merit to that. Some things come down to opinion. And when it comes down to opinion, then your truth is just as valuable as my truth, I suppose, when it comes down to opinion. But if your truth runs contrary to the absolute truth, then your truth is not very powerful whatsoever. If your truth is that 2 + 2 = fish, that's not a very powerful truth, because it's false. It's not truth. Anyways, moving right along, here's what really, I thought, spoke volumes about the kind of person that the media is pointing to and saying, Oprah Winfrey for president in 2020. It's not just a story, and she's speaking about, here in this previous paragraph, she said, I'm especially proud and inspired by all women who have felt strong enough and empowered enough to speak up and share their personal stories. Each of us in this room are celebrated because of the stories that we tell, and this year we became the story. Now, first of all, it is a good thing, it is an important thing that so much sexual impropriety and almost criminal corruption has been exposed as coming out of Hollywood and the media. That's a good thing. It's a good thing that women, especially coming from the realm that pretends to be all for women and all about feminism, have become empowered enough to share their stories about the perpetrators of abuse against them. This is certainly a good thing. But what Oprah uses that to springboard into is either an incredibly sexist outlook on the world, or, which I don't believe is legitimate, or an incredibly pessimistic outlook on the world, especially when it comes to the behavior of men and the women that they abuse, which might be legitimate, but is still a little bit of a stretch. So here she goes. It's not just a story. It's being the story of women telling the stories about abuse that they've suffered through. Not just a story affecting the entertainment industry. It's one that transcends any culture, geography, race, religion, politics, or workplace. Think about that implication. Transcends any culture, geography, race, religion, politics, or workplace. And she goes on to describe a few categories of these women. She says they're domestic workers and farm workers. They're working in factories. They work in restaurants. They're in academia, engineering, medicine, and science. So it's working women. And if you want to say that domestic workers includes stay-at-home moms, then you've effectively got 100% of women. And all of these women are subject to abuse and assault. Is it strawmanning to say that Oprah Winfrey believes that 100% of women are either abused or assaulted in some way, shape, or form, and there is no escape? Is that a straw man to say? Somebody please tell me, because that was my first reading of that sentence. Oprah goes above and beyond. Even the 1 in 4 number, that at this point, if not has been highly debunked, is still remains highly suspect. This is the kind of woman that believes that 100% of women are abused or assaulted in some way, that the mainstream media is having an orgasm over in anticipation of her becoming the president of the United States of America in 2020. And somehow, Oprah Winfrey goes from women choosing silence in the face of abuse for the sake of propelling their own careers. She equates that, through the telling of this story, to the inarguable injustice that was the Jim Crow era of the United States of America. She tells the story of one woman named Reese Taylor. She says that Reese Taylor was a young wife and mother walking home from a church service he attended in Abbeville, Alabama, where she was abducted by 6 armed white men, raped, and left blindfolded by the side of the road. They threatened to kill her if she ever told anyone. Apparently, justice wasn't an option. The men who tried to destroy her were never persecuted, and Reese Taylor died 10 days ago, 2018. Not quite. 2017, very end of 2017. Why were her assailants never prosecuted? If it is a fact that Reese Taylor was raped by by 6 men, why were they never prosecuted? Because as far as I can tell, as recently as 2009, rape was a felony in the state of Alabama, either a first-degree Class A or second-degree Class B. Those are but still both felonies. And when it comes to felonies, there is no statute of limitations, no time limit for the prosecution of any felony involving the use of, attempted use of, or threat of violence to a person. And what did we just read? Reese Taylor was raped and threatened with death if she ever told anyone. That sounds like, if not a rape, then sexual abuse, a Class C felony, which has no statute of limitations in the state of Alabama. Why were her assailants never prosecuted? And when it comes to the stories like we've been hearing in the Me Too and the Hollywood sexual scandal stuff that happened last year, unfortunately, the reason that these men are not prosecuted is because it's expedient for the careers of the women who are being abused to do nothing. Yes, Harvey Weinstein is a powerful individual in the Hollywood establishment. But as we have seen, Harvey Weinstein is not immune to the law. Theoretically, Harvey Weinstein is not immune to the criminal justice system, and we've seen in its own way the left carrying out justice against Harvey Weinstein for all of these accusations. We may never see these play out in a courtroom because of the way that pleading out and settling out of court works. But it was expedient for the women that suffered at the hands of powerful media individuals to stay silent. I would hope that that is not the case of Mrs. Reese Taylor. Otherwise, Oprah Winfrey may have provided us with a tragically terrible example of injustice in the form of violence committed towards a woman. And that's all that I have to say about Miss Oprah Winfrey's speech at the Golden Globes. This is not a political blockbuster in any sense. In only one sense of the word is this a political blockbuster, and that is to the left. And that is to their emotional appeal. I've heard it said that when Oprah Winfrey is on fire, people are bawling their eyes out. And apparently, the attendees of the Golden Globe Awards and the mainstream media that watched on were in tears and had lost all sense of composure. So, so she has definitely scored political points in the eyes of the media elites and the Hollywood elites. And as long as she can say the right thing, she'll become a very popular Democrat candidate. But she has not even said for sure that she wants to run in 2020. And she definitely, thus far, does not have a policy stance besides all men are evil. Now, I wanted to take a few moments to tell you a couple of things that I have in the works. Two videos I have that I want to publish very soon are movie reviews and analyses. Now, I'm a lay critic, and my taste in movies is probably not going to match up with a lot of people, would probably not even be considered very valuable opinions. But nevertheless, I do want to share these with you. The movies that I want to present my reviews and analyses for are The Greatest Showman and Darkest Hour, movies that I went and watched just this weekend. If you are interested in seeing those and are excited to watch those videos, make sure that you subscribe and hit the bell for notifications, because they will not be released on our usual 6 o'clock schedule. I do plan on releasing those videos as kind of bonuses, so you won't want to miss those. Make sure you subscribe. Until the next time, however, this is the video of today. Thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope that you'll come back next time as we continue to discuss the news, breaking news events, and the big stories of the day. Until next time, good night, and God bless.